Okay, I think this is recording. I'm going to assume it is because every time I wait, it ends up getting a couple of seconds in the beginning. But basically, welcome to the Flipping and Wholesaling Houses in New York show. I am Michael Pinter. I teach you how to start flipping or wholesaling houses in New York, or if you're already doing it, how to grow your business. So, oh crap. I don't have water. I'll get some soon. Question is, what is a double closing? So, what is a double closing? So there's really two ways to make quick money as real estate investing, and that is assigning the contract or double closing. So let me explain. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to sort of explain why you may not need to double close in New York and why it's different. So when I go to contract on a property, I have to either close on it, which means take possession of the property, or I can wholesale the property. So technically, there are two ways to wholesale the property. I can assign the contract, so I find somebody who will just sign an assignment of contract, take over my spot, or I could double close. Now, this is much more popular in other states. I'm going to explain why at the end. But what I do in an assignment is I go to one closing, and basically the new cash buyer takes my place and now is taking my place in the contract with the seller. That's an assignment. That is the cleanest. But a double closing means I'll actually do two closings. I'll close on the purchase and then I'll close on the sale immediately. So usually this takes place either immediately right after or simultaneously, like two conference rooms in the same office. Now, the advantages of a double closing are that the buyer is not going to know how much money you're making or how much money you were buying it for from the seller, and the seller is not going to know that you are not the end buyer. Which is good, right? Which is really good. In a way, it's a much cleaner process. And it happens a lot in other states. I gotta blow my nose, sorry. And it happens in other states for a few reasons. It happens in other states because, number one, the title company sort of manages the whole process, as opposed to New York where it's attorneys who are dispersing the funds. And the title company can really run this much easier. Because it's not an attorney, it's less complicated. So technically they could also really do the sale before the purchase, which is a little iffy, but it's done sometimes, especially if the proceeds come in. There is a risk, right? Because if you do the sale before the purchase and something happens to the purchase, I don't care if it's a meteor hitting the building or a bus driving through or the guy having a heart attack, you got a problem because you just sold something you don't own. But, very rare occurrence for that to happen. Now, the main reason why people double close is because what I said, they don't want each party to know what the other thing is going on. And the reason why they care if people know is because in other states, it's very easy to get into contract, right? Very simple. I'm a buyer, you're a seller. I say, I'll buy your house for $400,000. I bring a piece of paper over, you sign it, a contract, and we're done. In New York, it's much harder to get into closing. But just like it's easy to get into contract in other states, it's very easy to get out of contract in other states. So it's very common for a seller to walk away from a deal. So if a seller gets to a closing and he's selling you a house for $100,000 and he sees that you're assigning it to someone for $150,000, he may say, you know what, screw you. That's really the value and I'm out of here. Now, there are certain ways to protect yourself in other states. You can record the contract with the county. You can record an affidavit of contract, a memorandum of contract, but they don't really protect you. They put you in a situation where if the guy walks away, you should cloud title, which means something will show up on title. Or if he tries to sell it to somebody else, that title company may go, hey, you need to take care of this. And you'll get a call from the title company and you'll say, yeah, I want my $10,000, whatever the hell it is. But it's not foolproof. It doesn't work all the time. Some title companies don't give a shit. And the guy could say, I'm never selling you the property or never selling property to anyone again because I don't want to get screwed. Now, the difference in New York, and really one of the greatest things about New York, is that nobody's getting out of contract. Ever. So if a seller says he's going to sell to you and he changes his mind, you can do two things. One is you can file a list pendants on the property, which basically means like you're a lender foreclosing on him and he'll never be able to sell it to anybody else. This isn't a memorandum of contract. This is as serious as anything that shows up on title. And number two is you can sue him for specific performance, which means for the entire purchase price. So you want to buy something for $400,000, even if you're going to make $10,000 profit, you could sue him for $400,000 and you'll win. And so then you may say, well, the seller doesn't know that. But the seller in New York is almost 99.9% of the time represented by an attorney. So I've had on a couple of occasions where a seller called me and goes, you know what? I'm not selling it to you. And I've always remained calm and said, just speak to your attorney. And I've always gotten a call, sometimes that day, sometimes the next day, saying, when can we close? So you can't get out of contract in New York. And because you can't get out of contract in New York, you may not need to double close. So I remember one of my first wholesale deals was a monster deal. It was a $120,000 deal with a very angry seller. And he was constantly bitching about how he was taken advantage of. And I said to my attorney, maybe we should double close on this. And he goes, why? I said, because I think this guy's going to walk from the closing when he sees how much money I'm making. And he goes, listen, he may be pissed off, but he's not selling it to anybody else. Those are beautiful words said to me by an attorney, and that is the truth. Once you're in contract, the guy can't walk away. I didn't go to that closing. I don't know if he was pissed off, but I made my money. Now, another reason in New York why you don't want to double close is because the closing costs are so freaking high. So let me explain. In other states, your closing costs are $600. If you want to double close, you're paying an extra $600. Even if you have transfer tax in some states, you're paying an extra $1,000, $2,000. If you have a decent wholesale deal, you're making 20 grand. You may say, okay, I'll eat the $2,000 so I don't have to deal with any kind of possible problems from the seller. But in New York, the closing costs are really high. So the best deal I ever did was 5 properties from one seller. I wholesaled it to one buyer, assigned it to one buyer, and it was supposed to make $750 was my purchase price, my price from the seller, and I was selling it for $975. So it's $225,000. Amazing. But I had a problem because there was some, I don't want to get into why, but I needed to double close. I double closed. It cost me 40 grand to double close. I made $185,000, the best deal I ever did. But it cost me 40 grand, about $8,000 a property. And that's for transfer tax, and that's for title charges, and recording fees, and all the shit I had to do. I had to borrow some of the money to use and it was a huge pain in the ass. And it's expensive. In New York, it's feasible to say you can spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on double closing. Now, if you have a monster deal, it might be worth it for you. In my opinion, though, the two factors both reasons make it much, much, much less sensible to double close in New York, right? If you're going to pay an exorbitant amount, like a big chunk of your assignment fee, and you don't have the seller and the buyer don't have the ability to walk away, then who cares? Who cares? Just assign it. So I'm big into assignments. I know there are people who do double closings up in the Hudson Valley. On some level, I'm tempted by it. I just can't figure out how to make it work for me here. But I really would like to do it if it's cleaner and it doesn't cost me money. But it's too expensive most of the time, and I don't really see the need for it, right? It avoids interpersonal questions, right? Like I just got a 5-star review on Google saying they were great, amazing. The only thing was he assigned it to somebody else, and that wasn't a big deal, but he still gave me 5 stars. So it's just, it avoids some of the complications. But the question is whether you have to analyze how much it's going to cost, the double closing versus assigning, and you have to analyze if it's really necessary, right? I found it's most of the time, almost every time, it's not going to kill the deal, right? In other states, they do it because the deal might die if you don't do it. Here, the deal's not going to die. It's just somebody could be upset. Why did you do this? I don't understand, that kind of thing. Okay, so that really explains what double closing is. But I want to be clear. The main reason why people double close in other states is so that both the buyer and the seller don't know how much money you're making and don't get upset and walk away from the closing, because it's easy to walk away from a closing in other states. It's impossible to walk away from a closing in New York. So the deal's still going to go through in New York. But you can upset people. Well, who is this guy? This isn't the person I sold it to. What's happening? That happens. The question is whether it's cost prohibitive or not. So that's a decision to make. I would recommend, my default is always assigning. If you have a specific reason why you don't want to assign, then you can think about double closing, but find out what the costs are going to be. They're not going to be cheap. It's going to be several thousands, multiple thousands of dollars. If you're not making multiple thousands of dollars, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I hope this explained what it is. Again, double closing means I'm in general, an assignment is I'm in contract A to B, sellers A selling to me B. I get assign the contract to C. C is then taking my spot and buying from A. Double closing means I'm buying the property from A, and then I'm selling it to B. It's 2 separate contracts, straight up contracts. If you're interested in all the ways I can help you, go to howtoflipnewyork.com. If you're interested in my course that teaches how to do what I do, go to howtoflipnewyorkcourse.com. If you're interested in learning more about one-on-one coaching, which is ridiculously low priced, I have to raise the price, go to coaching.howtoflipnewyork.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. If you're watching on any channel, please click like. The thumbs up really help me. And please keep the comments coming. I post 5 times a week. I don't always know what the hell I'm going to talk about. The comments give me topics to talk about. If a topic can be a bit, you can ask a question on anything. It doesn't have to be the topic that you're watching the video on. If it's a quick answer, I'll just reply with an answer. If it's a topic I've covered before, I'll send you a link to the video. If it's something new, I'll do a new video on it. So thank you very, very much for watching.